What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much for helping me reach 30 countries. I think it's a pretty incredible milestone for the podcast. You guys have been awesome in supporting and greatly appreciate the feedback that I do get back. That being said, today's guest, she is the founder and CEO of Dip Sustainable Hair Care, and she's also a Forbes Business Council member. Please help me welcome Kate. Kate, how you doing?
Hello. Hello.
There we go.
Hi. Hey, I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you
I'm
for
doing
having me
good.
here.
Yeah, grateful to have you on here. I when I did a little research, on your platform and what you do, I think it's pretty incredible what you do. I think you have a pretty strong base, so can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too.
So what inspired you to start Dip, and how does your personal values shape the brand?
Sure. So what inspired me to start Dip was it's really been built out of frustration. I think that in 2020 we saw an explosion of sustainable brands. And I think a lot of them were built like plastic free forward instead of really consumer forward. And so what that really means is that they decided, oh, here's an opportunity. I think marketers, when I say they decided that there's like this opportunity. Hey, people are going towards plastic free. Like, let's just make a bunch of stuff plastic free and rush it to market and not really put a lot of care into it. And so you had this whole fleet of brands that really, they weren't, it's not that they just felt unthoughtful because when you're a consumer purchasing them and trying to like reduce plastic for the sake of the earth, a lot of times people felt very frustrated with what they got. None of them really inspired long-term change. And personally, I felt that about hair care specifically because I'd been in the beauty industry for about 20 years and I knew that what I wanted from a shampoo and conditioner bar was that it was going to make my hair look great. That's number one. The second part, or even maybe the third part, was that it would be plastic free. It had to inspire long-term change. So what I had was like a graveyard full of bars that didn't work. And that was the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. Is just like a whole lot more garbage, and I would keep going back to the bottle, basically. And so, you know, that was a big piece, the frustration piece. I was like, I know I can solve this problem. I know I can make it good, and I know I can make people happy with what they purchased. And then the other piece about, how do I like what was it? How do I put my lifestyle into the values?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I very, very much I go into refill stores to reduce my plastic. And if anyone doesn't know what a refill store is, they're stores that where you bring an empty bottle or container of something, and then you go to the store and you refill it instead of buying new packaging, which essentially becomes garbage in the end. And so I really wanted my to take my products and put them on the shelves of refill stores because I knew that's where my customer was. And I also knew I could use this as a vehicle to get more people into refill stores. Like I'm kind of trying to like bo peep people into refill. So refill stores to buy dip, and then when you're there to get dip, you can be exposed to like never having to buy paper towels again, or never having to buy saran wrap, or a big jug of plastic laundry detergent again. So that's kind of the genesis of it all, and how I really tried to, make a bigger impact than just hair care.
Right. And I believe you spoke about hair being your therapy essentially. Can you share how that connection just kind of flows with everything that you do? Like you say that it's therapy for you. Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any mistake that therapy and therapy are kind of the same thing. Like I will go through many seasons of my life and you can tell whether I'm happy or sad by my hair. You can tell a lot of times, if hair is unkempt, it's a sign of grief. Or, sad or just sadness, or you can see someone who, is fully confident. You can see that bounce in their hair. Hair tells a story, and I think it also is one of these things that is very emotionally tethered to people. When people go through hair loss or chemotherapy, like that is a very, very deeply painful part for many people is the hair loss. I know even as simple as and as kind of trivial as a bad haircut can like really ruin a few weeks. So I love how emotional hair is, and I love that for me anyway. Like even down to when I was at my mother's funeral, I wore my hair in a beehive as a tribute to her because that's how she used to wear her hair in the 60s, and it was like a big um, connector for me and her to talk about hair. So it's it's very emotional, and I think it's not that's just not um, I don't know, it's not really talked about that much.
Yeah.
We always talk about hair as a very surface level thing, but I think it's a lot deeper than that.
So, speaking from a man's perspective, I can tell you when I grew up, I always thought the coolest thing ever was mohawks, right? It was
Oh
always so
yeah,
cool to see
so cool.
people do mohawks. And now, I believe the trend now is longer hair with the shaved sides of their
Mhm.
head. Um, for me, I remember when I first started getting gray hairs, and people
Oh
joke about,
yeah.
"Oh my God, gray hairs," right? And then when I started growing out the beard, the gray hair started going into the beard, and I started getting compliments. I'm like, people used to make fun of me for having gray hairs, and I would either always shave my head, which I still do, and always wear hats, and that was the biggest reason. And I really like that you said it's kind of storytelling because you spoke to your mother's funeral and wearing it
Mhm.
in a beehive. I do agree that it's not talked about enough. It's more made into memes, and it's all you can tell somebody's unstable by how many times they change their hair color, right? um, so I really love that you spoke to that because I feel when we're grieving, the hair loss, or when somebody's going through chemo, I will always love those videos of the barbers shaving their
Me
patient's
too.
head and then shaving their own heads, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Wait, no, don't do that."
Yeah.
Um, I, I I think hair is something that I feel every walks of life person can tell a story one way or another, and I love that you connected it with emotion as well.
Yeah, thank you. And to that point, that's why I chose hair as the vehicle to get people to care about the environment because I think that's an easier way to than getting them to care about plastic,
Hmm.
you know? And
Right?
so, the hair thing, like did you ever get the mohawk? Did you ever have
No,
one?
no, my
Oh
mom would
man.
never let me.
It's like did you do a lot of different hair phases or were you kind of typically or different beard phases?
So the beard phase, yeah, I've tried so many different ways of shaving my beard. I have tried a
So
goatee,
cool.
didn't like it. Um, Try going almost baby face. I'm like, I don't know if I could do baby face ever again. um, I remember when I tore my shoulder, I had grown out my goatee, and it looked
Mhm.
like my dad, and it scared the shit out of me. I'm like, dude, this is not okay. I don't like this. Um, but yeah, the beard thing, I've tried a couple different ways. I kind of like it long and just try to keep it short on the sides.
Yeah. Did you ever
It's
do big sideburns?
No, no. So I always try to make a point to where the fangs on the gray hair just kind of always
Hmm.
line up.
It's
So
cool.
yeah, that's usually what I do with the beard. But my mom would never let me do anything with my hair when I was younger. So it was always short. It was always faded. Um,
Mhm.
I think the only time I ever grew up my hair, ironically enough, was during the pandemic when everything was closed.
Oh man, yeah.
Super weird.
Yeah, pandemic hair was like a crazy thing. Like
Yeah,
people were box dyeing that had never box dyed before. Like people were experimenting with haircuts in their home, like self haircutting. It was really kind of a wild thing to see what was going on with pandemic style.
right. Yeah, and I think I grew out my hair really, really long and was super gray and had a really
Hmm.
like scruffy beard. I'm like, I don't like this. This is never happening again.
That's really
um,
cool.
how has motherhood influenced your perspective on mental health and intentional living?
Oh man, that's a great question. So, so motherhood really catapults you into a leadership role that you just didn't know you were meant for. And so I think parenthood in general, motherhood and fatherhood, probably both things, because suddenly you're not the most important person in the room anymore. And so you're not the most important, but you're also still like now the leader for a long time. And it changes you in a way that is very magical. It's like some sort of like biological sorcery.
Mm,
But it's also um it it deepens your love of your own parents. And I think in that way, whatever relationship you have with your own parents, there's a reset and a new love for them, because you realize what it really takes to raise someone from infancy to even just getting to age 2 and then 5 and then 10. I'm at 10. My oldest is 10. So to me, it was like a good mental health reset to become a parent. It was a very magical one. And I became a mother just as I lost my own. So I lost my mother in April while I was pregnant, and then I became a mother a few months later. And so it really, I think it can change you either way. A lot of women suffered with postpartum. I had kind of the opposite. I had because I think I lost my mom so quickly before my son was born, I had this resurgence and this new energy that gave me this happiness that I didn't have. I
Right.
was grieving when I gave birth, and it invigorated me in a new way.
Yeah. Do you ever incorporate, you being a mother into the brand that you have? Like, do you notice like specific hairstyles that they do, or just how you incorporate things into your brand?
A little bit. I'm a lot more empathetic to the customer, I think.
Mm,
I think, once you become a mother for one, you become literally a mother for all. There's a different level of understanding among women, and I think among parents in general. So I say mothers, but I do mean fathers too. Like
yeah.
you want for with my business specifically, like I want people to change for all of our children.
Hmm.
I
Right.
want the children are a big motivator for people to change. And people assume that Generation Z are the ones buying the hair care the most, like making the swaps the most. But I actually find that it's parents that
Mm,
are really worried about the state of the world for their children that are more motivated to make the swap over to plastic-free hair care.
interesting. I've heard that saying that once you become a parent, you try to become a parent for everybody else.
Mhm.
I think it's one of the funniest, but one of the most ironic things too, because it's like we want to leave that better future for everybody
Yeah.
around us. And with you being a mom and having the product and brand that you have, it's like I understand what you're going through, and you're trying to incorporate not only your passion for what you're doing, but for those parents that are struggling.
Yeah. And part of the brand that's really has parents in mind is that the bars work for all hair types. So if you have like a mother with type 1 straight blonde hair and a father with like kinky coily type 4 hair, and you have 4 kids, all of that entire family can share the bars. So they'll
Mhm.
work across everyone. They don't need to buy, that family doesn't need to buy 6 different sets of shampoo and conditioner to satisfy the different hair types. And for me, like that's a big deal because
Yeah.
as especially as a mom is the person that usually ends up doing the shopping and the purchasing for the household, like the fact that you only have to have one set in your shower for 6 people is a huge deal.
Yeah, that's very cost efficient too, I feel.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so you had spoke to, being more empathetic towards your customers. What has been
Mhm.
some of the most emotionally challenging moments in building Dip, and how did you navigate through them?
So emotionally challenging, I'd say one of the biggest like parts that ripped my soul apart was I put in a big purchase order for a reorder for products at a contract manufacturer.
Mhm.
That contract manufacturer took the money and then went bankrupt. And
Oh
so
no!
suddenly I had a huge amount of loss. And that was one of the things that was like very scary. Now I am a proud owner of my own factory and my own manufacturing facility, and I have an amazing team that works there. And so, but I didn't know I was going to make that move. Like, wait, it
Right.
socked me in the gut really, really hard when I heard of the bankruptcy, and there was like a lapse where I didn't know what the future of my company would be. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to like take this to another place, or like how am I going to navigate all of this? Because it's a slow process to transfer from one place to another. And yeah, it ended up motivating me to build my own thing. So now, everyone's talking about American manufacturing, and now I am one of those people that has a factory.
Yeah, that's that. I can only imagine how terrifying that has to be, putting in all that heart and soul and your hard-earned money
Yeah.
into something just for it to fall
Go
through the floor.
disappear.
So Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It made me when the kind of sick where you're like having to excuse yourself and like puke blood, like that kind of sick. Like it's very,
Wow.
I was like, because my entire family's livelihood was wrapped in the company. Like I
Right.
eventually got my husband to work on the team too, and so that I mean, imagine suddenly, and it's not an imaginary thing for a lot of people. Like people are losing their jobs left and right to AI, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh my God, I don't have a safety net. I don't know what to do. It frightened me a lot.
So how long was that transition period from, when that bankruptcy incident happened to when you created your own facility or manufacturer rather?
It was a few months,
Mm,
like I took action really, really quickly. Like
yeah.
I started, when you kind of like start to sniff the signs of bankruptcy, like didn't it took me a little while to realize like the red flags were there. And once they started to be there, I started to like, it starts to give you the dizziness. You're like, oh, maybe I'm imagining this, or maybe I'm looking too hard. And then so when the time I actually got the news of it, you know, it took me it was quite a few months to kind of get back on my feet. And during that time, I still had to like pay bills and make sure,
Yeah.
there's so much overhead in having a business in the first place. And then think about like adding a factory to that and employees all of a sudden. Like it's
Right.
kind of wild. um but now, now looking back, I'm so glad I did it because it having my team is what enables me to be a parent and share some of the load of owning a business.
Right. And, just being in that state of shock, just it paralyzes a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Um, I remember in the pandemic when, the vaccine mandates were going out through, like all corporations. And basically I didn't know enough about them to want to get one. And I was,
Yeah.
scared to lose my job. And I remember talking to my therapist after the fact. We had like this town hall meeting at work, and people were panicking in the comments, like, "Oh, another day of business." No, dude, it's thousands of people concerned they're going to lose their job, and you
Yeah.
guys are just, "Oh, well, we're making money. It's a good day." What?
My gosh.
Um, but anyway, sorry to veer off track there for a second. You had mentioned AI, and with it growing in technology and just everything that's going on in the world, what is your opinion on AI, and do you think there are any benefits to it?
So AI is so broad that there are some benefits to AI. There are some, some people are getting hours of their lives back using it. Some people are, there's some people that freeze at a blank screen so they can get like a thought started or, you know, I will say that sometimes if I get like a prickly email from someone or if I'm like in an angry place, that I use AI to take how I really feel and say, like, please turn this into a more empathetic, constructive response. Because if I had to wait for myself to cool down, I probably wouldn't get the email right it the right way. And so, I think, but I don't use AI in any way that would kind of get rid of an entire position at my company.
Right.
Um, but there a lot of places are like I actually wonder how the modeling industry is going to be and how a lot of people that have become content creators in their home, like you can type a few prompts and get like a very real content creator
Yeah.
that looks like someone in their house. It's kind of wild and it's a little bit scary, but that job has only existed for a few years and it's
Right.
already, I think, that star is gonna fade really fast. And I worry about these people in all these different parts of the country that like relied on that UGC and content creator and influencer income because now it's basically free to create avatars of
Yeah.
people.
It's
It's
terrifying.
crazy. Yeah,
I don't really care for AI in the art industry or the music
no,
industry. Um,
no.
I saw Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter,
Mhm.
talking about people sending her videos of her dad in AI form,
Yikes.
and it I can understand like the good that people are trying to do, trying to keep his memory alive, but
Yeah.
I'm on her side more as you're ruining a legacy, and it's just
Mhm.
not appealing.
Well, that's like very hard on mental health. Like I still struggle with the loss of my mom, and one time I used an AI filter on her photograph just that would change her smile, like show her smiling, and it wrecked me for like even when I think about it, I still it wrecked me, like and it's so I can imagine if someone was bombarding me with that was something I did on my own, just to have a little moment of like
Mhm.
pretending my mom was still here. But like, I imagine if someone's sending you videos of whatever of your dad because they just think he's public property, and
Yeah,
like that has got to be so painful,
right.
especially with the way he passed and like yeah, I please if anyone's listening and doing this to Zelda, please stop.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
It's it's crazy. Don't do it to anyone.
My friend did something similar. I lost my brother back in 2021,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he did an AI video of him on the beach, and he's just turning around talking to us. I'm like, it sounds nothing like him. I said, don't send that to me again, because I was looking at it and just like looking at the facial expressions. I'm like, man, he wouldn't move like that. He doesn't talk like that,
Yeah.
and it was scary because it's just like in a sense, your brain wants to convince you, oh, it's him from heaven talking to you, kind of thing, and
Yeah.
then logic hits you, and it's like, yeah, that's not really him, and he wouldn't act like that.
Yeah. It's really,
But
really
like you said, with the modeling industry, I saw Hollywood was like trying to hire AI artists to
yeah, I
act in
saw
their
that.
movies. I mean, what? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, Entrepreneurship, as you know, can be isolating and intense. We talk about mental health. How do you protect your mental health while also trying to grow your brand?
So I realized that I don't need to grow my brand. I don't need to grow my brand to live a pretty nice lifestyle, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So
Yeah,
I'm not trying to grow. I've if dip is laterally the same every month, I can pay my employees, I can pay myself and my husband, I can generate a bonus from every year I give my employees bonuses, and sometimes they're random if we have like a great month, and we also donate to charities. So I'm not really like an income sponge. I don't think I'll ever be a millionaire. I have no idea, but like I'm not on this path for growth because I know that the on the other side of that hill, if we grow too much, the mental health will absolutely take a toll. And
yeah,
so I have this like beautiful business that is I wouldn't want to say chugging along. It's like it's comfortable and it's lovely and I can spend time with my children and I can talk to my sister on the phone. I have like moments where I can be human
yeah.
instead of like how you imagine an entrepreneur like on the phone, on the computer, like all the time. I can take breaks and that's because I keep it small.
That is the most refreshing response I think I've heard from somebody who has a brand of their own and a company of their own, for
Yeah.
that matter. Um, just to be able to hear the words comfortable and be able to
Yeah.
live your life and be a human being and not just a robot chucking away. Um, with the podcast and just content creation in general, sometimes you putting so many hours into it and you don't have time for anything else. And
Yeah.
for you to express, be able to spend time with your family, your kids, and talk to your sister and provide for not only your family but other people's families too.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. It's
I agree.
we're in a world where everybody's trying so hard to be a millionaire, right? We have
Yeah.
so many different types of platforms for
Hmm.
people. There's TikTok, there's YouTube, there's whatever. And people forget that, like you said, on the other side of the hill, it's draining. It's,
Yeah.
you got people who have been at the top for so long, artists, musicians, actors who have been at the top for so long and don't realize how lonely that lifestyle really is.
I
And
I know so many wealthy and severely unhappy people.
yeah,
I don't want to be one of those. Like,
right.
and I'm not saying wealth means unhappy, but it sure seems to happen to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
know.
Right.
Um, and I just have never, I don't know, I've never thought that that's what success is money. Success is enjoying your life. Um, and you know, sometimes I have like money worries just like everyone else. Like payroll can get scary,
Yeah,
that's all on my shoulders. But I voluntarily take that, I'll take it, in order to
yeah,
have this kind of life where not only am I able to, make sure my family feels safe and secure in just the everyday and that there's food on the table, but also my employees and their families. We have a married couple that works for Dip and they run the factory and they're wonderful. They're so amazing. But yeah, I have to provide for them too.
and then it's essentially going back to what you said about being the mom for everybody else, being that
Yeah.
provider. So I think that's just such a special feeling to be able to provide for not only yourself but for others too. So thank you for that answer. I think it's something that a lot of people can breathe that sigh of relief. Like, doesn't matter what level of the pole you're at, that there
Yeah.
are people that like yourself who own a business that are content, that are humble, and that aren't trying to just take and take. You give so much, and
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
You know what? I do believe in like energy and like you do get what you put out into the world and like
Absolutely.
I both of my parents were very different, but they were both the thing that they had in common is even when either of them had nothing, they were still generous,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and generous with time, with love, with whatever. And I've always found that being around people that just had generous hearts, however it
Mhm.
manifests out, like
Right.
is really like the better way to be. It's a more purposeful life in that way.
Which goes to my next question. What advice would you give to other founders who feel overwhelmed or burned out?
So the advice I would give to other founders is basically like what you have to distill like what it is you're doing and like what your why is. That's kind of trite advice. But the other thing is do you, why are you unhappy with where you are at the moment? Like you could be unhappy because of financial reasons, but like sometimes people create their unhappiness because they're chasing growth. And they're like, "Oh, I thought I was going to do like, this percent year over year, or we're not doing as well as we did last week." And it's like, okay, if you're not doing as well as last week, zoom out and make the period bigger and look at all you've accomplished in that time. I think people really narrow in on negative metrics way more than all of the positive ones they have because the negative ones like really burn and sticky in a bad way. But
Yeah,
most people have more positive metrics than bad ones when they take a bird's eye view of their business.
absolutely. And one of I love sharing this with people the way that I do my therapy sessions. So what I would love to do is write my negatives and my positives, and almost always the positives outweigh the negatives. And
Always.
while there are the negatives that are just like really glaring and you need to talk
Mhm.
about, like you said, there's always positive metrics there. And
Yeah.
I always try to, whenever I'm trying to help somebody go through what they're going through, it's like, listen, everything may seem dark right now, but you have your health. You have a roof over
Yeah.
your head, and when it comes to podcasting, I remember like a year in, I was so focused on numbers, because that's just
Yep.
what they drill in your head when you're a content creator. It's like, oh well, numbers matter, or else your
Mhm.
podcast and what your goal doesn't matter. um, and then I remember, I think within the last 6 months to a year, I stopped watching them. I stopped watching numbers. And
Yeah.
30 countries in, it's just like, wow, that growth happened. And I didn't watch it. I didn't hover over it.
Yeah. That's
And
the best. Isn't it?
yeah,
Isn't it feel so much better on your brain and soul to just not be obsessed with the growth and it
yes,
just yeah. And so I've detached myself from thinking that the business is an extension of me. You
yeah,
know, it's weird. A lot of people feel so like attached, almost like, Venom suit. Like it's like part of their being. Um,
okay. You want to hear something crazy? Look, get a
but
Venom pendant.
oh my God, no way.
Love the reference.
Yeah,
Um,
that was my favorite comic when I was a kid. I loved
I love
Venom.
it.
I was so happy when they made those movies.
Yeah. Um, you said something also there that I wanted to pull out of there is you got to find out your why, your
Yeah.
reason why. And that was the number one thing my therapist told me. It's like, it doesn't matter if 100 people are listening to an episode or just one.
True.
That one person matters more than those 100 people do,
Uh-huh.
because
That's 100,000,000,000% right. Like
Yeah.
it really resets you because numbers can be like I studied math, so numbers are important or whatever, but they're also so abstract.
Hmm.
So they don't mean anything the way we want them to mean something. But human to human contact and like eye contact and all the things that like make like the conversations important
Yeah.
are they're they're immeasurable, I guess. And
Yeah.
so it's very cool that you're having a conversation with anyone on a podcast and other people from 30 countries are listening. It's remarkable. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. And when you have people that'll just come out of nowhere and say, "Hey, I know we don't talk or anything, but your podcast saved my life." And I'm like, well, I don't know if it saved your life, but I'm grateful to hear stuff like that because it's like I put so much heart into every conversation that I have, and I love every guest that I have on here. And like I said to you, with just the growth isn't something you're chasing. Remark, this is why I do what I do because I love hearing different responses from people that um, you wouldn't expect those kind of responses from because of the job title. It
Yeah.
doesn't define that person, right?
Yeah.
Um, I remember I had one guest on. She had two doctorates, and I told her when the podcast started, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was super intimidated before I talked to her because I felt like an idiot. And I know that sounds really weird for me to say, but I felt really intimidated. Not because I fear somebody who is more intellectual than I am or anything like that, or a woman who has put so much education into her life, but just I felt like there was no question I could ask her that would make me sound like I'm on her level, I guess. And then when you break all those down, when you break down that degree and break down what her job title is, human to human contact. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
It's normal. Everyone at the end of the day kind of does the same things with their day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
They put on pants just like me, right?
yeah.
um, how do you handle pressure of being a public voice for sustainability while keeping yourself grounded?
I remember that nobody's a big deal, including myself. Like, to be honest, no one's a big deal. Like,
I
it's
love that.
no one, it helps with like embarrassment too. Even if you do something embarrassing, it's kind of like you're not a big enough deal for anyone to care about. Although I've never suffered like that Coldplay couple level of embarrassment or any kind of like this big stage embarrassment. It might be easy for me to say, but but like
Oh my god.
yeah. I mean, thank God that came and left for them. Like I don't even remember what their names are. But
Same.
that's actually proving my point. No, for a few days it was like a big thing and then it's now faded away.
Yeah.
Um so so yeah, I'm not a big deal and neither is anyone else.
So that leads me actually a good transition into this next question. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, not all the time. Like I go in and out of feeling like super confident, but you know, what I'm doing is so like I was in the beauty industry for 20 years
Mm-hmm.
and then now I kind of have stepped away from the beauty kind of traditional beauty industry. Now I'm in this like sustainable industry. And sometimes when I go back to beauty, because my I don't sell my bars on Amazon or in Ulta or Sephora, like, but my brand is just as successful as some of the brands that are in there. I do feel like a little level of imposter syndrome when someone's like, "So, where does your cute little brand sell?" And they're like, "Can I get it in Amazon?" I'm like, "No." You get it in Ulta? I'm like, "No." Sephora? No. And they're like, "Oh, cool." You know.
Hmm.
Um, but and that it makes me feel like I shouldn't be at the table, but more often than not, I find out the dip is like, you know, doing just as well, if not better than some of those brands that they all run to.
So I'm really happy you said that because there was a a mental health like conference that I was on, and one of my friends was well, not friends anymore, but he was telling his story on there. He's a former vet and everything, and you know, doing what he was doing. and there was doctors on there. There was people that are been in the industry for 10, 15 years, and then there's little old me. And I remember saying to my therapist, I don't belong there. Like,
Yeah.
my story doesn't matter nearly as much as these guys' degrees and their qualifications matter. And she's
Yeah.
like, take a step back and realize that the story you're telling matters a whole hell of a lot more than you think it does.
Mhm.
Because degrees don't mean shit. They do, of course. I'm not saying
No,
they
I
don't,
understand.
but like you said, people aren't that big of a deal, right? And
Right.
I remember sharing my um, brief story in that conference about my two attempts at 14 and 17, and just I remember a doctor just taking a step back when I was speaking and just like, wow, I didn't realize that men feel this way. And it's just like, I guess I do bring something to the table that's worth a shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I struggle with imposter syndrome so often that I almost didn't come back to this podcast when I took a break. And I remembered why I was doing this, again, conversations like this and remembering our reason why I think gets me through that imposter struggle because it's like
Yeah.
we all matter at the end of the day. Our story matters one way or another. And
Totally.
you've incorporated so much of who you are and the things that you've gone through into your brand. And I love that you mentioned just like the success reaches those brands that are like well known and those stores that are well known. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. And you know what? Like, I don't talk about it often, but when in 2020, before I started this brand, I had a different company and it shuttered. And then I went through like this crazy legal kind of dissolution of the company. And I had put so much of my identity into that company. And even though it was very short-lived, the aftermath of it was I was so riddled with shame. I was so um I was really not okay. Like I lost my vision. I didn't sleep for like 7 months and my weight, I was like very gaunt. And I didn't know if I was gonna make it. I would constantly say to my husband, I was like, I just don't want to be. And he's like, that is like very scary thing to say. And I would like Google like how to put yourself in a coma because I just want to get out of the legal thing. And I know a lot of people go through like some either financial stress or legal stuff or like any of these things. And I was someone who no one would suspect that was dealing with like this kind of struggle. Because people know me as like jolly and fun and you know like I don't I don't I don't emanate or like radiate out depression, but I was so ill and so sick during that time and I thought about ending my life every single day, if not every 5 minutes. It was brutal. And even my own kids, like I would look at them and I loved them, but probably they're the thing that kept me alive because I could not I could not make sense of like what was happening to me and my finances and literally everything around me. So, I understand that struggle. And I also, it's such like a weird, deep well to fall into, and nothing can pull you out except
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Like,
And,
yeah,
and that's something I feel is very important to bring up that you can lead the horse to the water. You can't force it to drink, right? We hear that
yeah,
saying all the time.
yeah,
And a lot of people, when they hear therapy, it's just like, oh, well, I'll go to therapy and I'll take all these antidepressants and I'll be okay in a week. It doesn't work that way. You got to
yeah,
put in that work. Um,
totally.
and for one, just want to say I'm grateful that you're still here.
Thank
Um,
you.
I know that season was probably one of the hardest of your life, and it takes a really big person to share that and to speak to that. So thank you for sharing that because I think that's something that not a lot of people have that strength to do. And like I said, I'm grateful that you're still
Thanks.
here.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's weird because on social media, my friends, like it was happening during 2020, my friends couldn't see anything was going on except I was very thin. And
Yeah,
so they're like, "Oh, you look great," But behind the scenes, I was losing my vision. My teeth were getting wiggly. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I couldn't do anything. And
yeah,
it was but I would have to like muster up energy to go be online or on Instagram lives for things. And it was like a very weird time in my life, and I'm so glad it's behind me. But then what a lot of people don't talk about is like then the repair. After you, when you get to that kind of rock bottom, the repair is like, I think I've only just this year really come out of that fog. And I had to
Yeah,
do a lot of things that I would, 2019 version of me would laugh at. Like I had to do a lot of well, it doesn't, I spent a lot of time walking outside with no music, just being in nature. I spent a lot of time journaling, meditating, all these and doing yoga, all things that I never I'm like a high like intense person, so I like to
yeah,
run. I like high intensity stuff. So having to slow down and reset my nervous system like 4 years after that time. I mean, it's been a little crazy,
yeah.
but it's what you have to do.
And like you said, the fog that you get trapped in, people don't realize that it's not an overnight thing. And
No.
we always hear that healing isn't linear, right? And
Mhm.
it's one of those things where I think so many people don't try to understand how, the repair stage, like you said, trying
Yeah.
to reset yourself. It took me 28 years to finally get help for myself, and
Yeah.
didn't realize how self-destructive I was and how bad that negative self-talk is, right? And
Yeah.
when you start healing and you're in those therapy sessions, and then once you leave that therapy session, it's like, all right, what did I get out of that session, and how do I plug that into my everyday life, and what can I do differently?
Yeah.
I love that
I
you
will
brought up the self-care methods too.
I, I will say so this year in particular has been really hard, but I had all of the tools to be able to handle it. So like in my stepmother became ill last October and she passed away in February. And see, she and I were very close. I'm in my 40s. She's been my stepmom since I was 5. So she passed away and that was very tough. And then in May, my brother got arrested for something and he is facing 10 years to life. And he's my older brother and he's, he nonviolent crime, but it's just he's still that's a mandatory 10. So that happened again. So that happened and then my father became ill in July and I lost him in mid-August. So I had it's basically like I've lost a few family members this year. And the only point I'm bringing this up is that those tools I used to get myself out of that kind of PTSD before were are ones that are helping me kind of keep myself level.
Yeah,
It's still give this year a C minus. Like this year, like I've had some triumphs and like some
right,
real lows, but the toolkit that you get that is like your mental armor, and if it's called armor, but more it's like this softening of the stress around you that has helped a lot. So if
yeah,
anyone else is going through like I feel like I'm grieving all the time.
right.
Um, but at least I have like the right toolkit, the mental toolkit to keep myself together enough to keep the train moving.
And just want to say sorry for your loss. I know,
Thank you.
losing my brother was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. So I definitely can sympathize with
Yeah.
loss and how hard grieving is. Especially when it comes to that date that 4 years ago. I think it was, yeah, 4 years this year. And I just remember the last conversation I had with him, and
Mhm.
it's for you to have somebody pass away in August and you come on here and talk about it is
Yeah.
strength. Like, that
Thanks.
takes a lot.
I want to keep the memory alive. The only way you can keep like there's certain memories, right? Like what do you do for your brother to keep his memory alive? But how do you keep him alive?
I write him a letter and go watch the sunset and read it to him.
That's really nice.
Yeah,
I love
or I'll
that.
do one of those Chinese lanterns where you write on it and let it off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that
there's
stuff.
and I always visit his memorial. I'll bring a shot with me, and I'll take a shot in front of his memorial and just talk to him for a little bit.
Is he your older or younger brother?
So he was older, like just a couple months older.
Oh man.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a drunk driver took his life. So,
Oh God.
um,
That's I'm sorry.
every time that I've ever thought about why I did the podcast, it's for him. He was that voice he gave me that voice. He saved my life. He's the one who stopped me from taking my life when I was 27.
Yeah.
And when I created the podcast, it was right after he passed away. And he gave me that voice, and I try to give the voice to the voiceless. It's there's a heavy meaning behind it, and like you said, you feel like you're grieving every day. And I got one of his sayings that he always used to say: "Defeat the me of yesterday," tattooed on my arm on his 2 year anniversary. So it's just a matter of how you keep their memory alive. Like you said, it's I believe there's an afterlife. I believe that there are signs that our guardian angels let us know that they're there. You know, um,
Did
but
you read the
like I
book
said,
Signs
no.
by Laura Lynn Jackson? It's
Mm-mm.
great.
I'll have to check it
It'll
out.
Yeah, she kind of like trains you how to ask for request the signs so they can let you know they're around.
I love
So you can
that.
like, channel it. Yeah, it's great.
I'll have to look it up.
Cool.
Um, so you had mentioned not being on Amazon. How does that decision reflect your values around mental clarity and just your community?
So what I see a lot of times, what happens is brands build their business on the backs of small stores that
Hmm.
find them first. And
Right.
then they're like, great, like now I can take these sales numbers and go big. And that happens at the expense of the small stores that built them in the first place. And so for me, the refill community, which is like the bulk of the stores that carry dip, like they are so, so important to me. What their mission that they're doing is so important that I want them to succeed more than I need myself to succeed in a way where like I could 10x my sales on Amazon, sure, by going on there, or I can stay at like this kind of comfortable baseline where my stores are succeeding and I'm succeeding and I don't have to do this hyper growth at their expense because they're not strangers to me. I know these people. Like I've been around the country, all over the country, meeting people where they are, meeting the refill store owners, meeting the customers in their store and getting to know like what's important to people at ground level. And I think, you know, I I strongly believe that like there has to be some like humanity and empathy in capitalism. Even, I
Yeah.
studied economics and math, right? So economics is called the dismal science because it kind of removes all humanity. And
Hmm.
I'd like to make an argument that I think you need empathy kind of build it into your business plan in order for it to work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just don't see the point. Like, I don't really see the point in starting anything if you're not gonna have some kind of like human level to it.
Agreed. Whatever brands that I own or anything, and you call customer service, or you just try to get a simple answer from somebody, and it's
Mhm.
like automation, and you're
Oh
talking to an
yeah.
AI robot. It's like, dude, I just want to talk to a rep. Like, can we just like stop making this so
Yeah.
complicated? And
Hmm.
I remember not like going off on the rep, but it's just like, I don't understand how you guys are still as successful as you are and have an AI bot answer your phones. Like, I understand why you do it because you get
Yeah.
thousands of calls. I get it. But it's
Hmm.
like, at what expense do you sacrifice humanity, like you said, just to make a
Yeah.
quick dollar? You know what I mean? I will never understand it.
Never.
But I love that you keep that humanity in your brand because I think that's so important. And just being able to speak to your customers and knowing who they are. Which brings me to a question. You said you've been around the country. Do you ever go to like conventions or anything to share your brand, or how do you get the word
Sometimes.
out about your brand?
Sometimes. So I'm very, very lucky that these stores are all over the country. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've done like the Surf Expo, Carve Expo. I've done few other trade shows. Most recently we did Brand Assembly. So like those are conventions kind of. But really the work is done in person.
Yeah.
So I get to meet people all over the country and then those store owners become then like the mouthpiece for the brand. And they're so wonderful. And I as a brand, I invite small store owners who are not influencers. They're influencers for me, but they like come, I take them on trips And I do like the dip influencer trips or just small store owners around the country. And we all get together and we talk about the state of sustainability and commerce and like kind of big picture things. And we also have like a really good time. And so I've built it that way where we kind of just get together and do stuff. Um,
It's the
and
old
so
fashioned way. I love that.
yeah, it is old fashioned. Like when everyone else was going digital, I just went analog because I think people crave that.
Yeah.
I built Dip in 2021, when everyone was isolated. And I was like, I think people want to see people again. You know, not all the people, just enough of us really crave like, what humans were made for. It's just friendship and, you know, I don't know, a social code
Yeah.
again.
I think the hardest thing for me in the pandemic was I started therapy virtually. And
Mm.
when I was living in New Jersey at the time, that therapy session was person to person. That was like 2018. So when I came down here and, the pandemic happened and I was supposed to have my first therapy session in our office, she's like, oh, well, since the pandemic, it's going to be virtual therapy. And I just remember we were like, I'm more of a face to face person. I don't like this
Yeah.
virtual stuff. And because it just doesn't feel genuine, and
Right.
she does her sessions a type of way where it's like, okay, there is emotion here, there is understanding. So the pandemic, the hardest thing for me still is going out into public places and everybody's just not looking at each other. People don't.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I don't know. I remember the first concert that I went to post pandemic, and just remember being so paranoid because you don't know what's true about COVID. You don't, and
Right.
just that social interaction is so awkward now because, like you said, everybody went digital and nobody's really doing face to face stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear that you stuck to your guns and still do things the way that you do them. I think that's super important to keep that humanity, like you said earlier, alive.
Yeah, I think people want it. Maybe and I don't know like why we let it get so digitized. We let everything get so digitized. And you even see like the way comment sections are right now. Like the people are angry
Yeah.
and they're like spring loaded to write comments and just go crazy on people. Like that's not good
Mm,
for anyone's mental health on the receiving end,
right.
you know. Um it's crazy to see how angry people are and how much they forget that someone else is on the receiving end of their, it's like
Tirade. Yeah.
digital brutality, really.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Um, I remember when the digital stuff first, started becoming a thing when they were starting to move a lot of their DVDs off the shelves and just sell them on their store. And I remember calling Walmart and I asked them, I said, "Hey, are you guys selling any DVD racks? I need a couple, and I know you guys used to carry them." And he's like, "What are DVD racks?" And I'm like, "Stop it right now! Like, there's no way that there's somebody alive that doesn't know what that is." And he's
Yeah.
like, "We everything's digital now."
Oh my
And
God.
when I walked in the store, I'm like, "Dude, you have a whole aisle of DVDs still. What do you mean it's all digital?"
Yeah.
And for me, my tool getting through anything is always movies. I could probably make an entire conversation based on movie quotes. That's just how my brain decided to cope around pain.
Yeah.
And going in there just so awkwardly, like making me feel stupid because there's no DVD racks. Like, what do
Mhm.
you mean they don't exist? Like, am I crazy here?
Yeah.
um, and I don't know, the digital thing, it got so bad so quick, and I absolutely hate it.
Me too. I think most people hate it. I think you stop
Yeah.
10 people on the street, like nine of them hate it. And someone's like, what are
Right.
you talking about? I don't care. But,
Right.
but I think most people hate it.
Yeah. What's one small sustainable habit you believe can make a big emotional impact?
Well, I'm gonna immediately plug Dip, like
Yeah,
the
please.
shampoo and conditioner for sure. And I say that because your hair can look amazing. It's a reminder every time, like you shower a few times a week, like or every day that you're doing something that is a little bit meaningful. And
Mm,
you're doing it with a whole bunch of other people who are doing the same thing. And together, you guys are doing a lot. Like just kind of thinking of, like, hey, I'm part of this movement and I'm starting with shampoo and conditioner bars. And hey, maybe I'll like get the paper towel replacements next, so I never have to buy paper towels again. And maybe then I'll go and start refilling my spices and save a lot of money doing that at my local refill store. And hey, maybe I'll learn my local refill store person's name, right? And I'll become a regular there instead of a stranger. And then it kind of snowballs into that. And you go to the events that they hold. Well, most of the refill stores I know like hold events, and then you get exposed to all this other, you know, earth-saving activity that you probably wouldn't have done before. And it all kind of starts with a shampoo or conditioner. And I know that sounds silly, but it's
Not at
really the
all.
trajectory of what happens, and it's
Yeah,
cool.
I love that. I don't think it's silly at all. I love that you incorporated your business into that because I feel if you're not passionate about something, why are you doing it? So
Exactly.
I think something as small as shampoo and conditioner, I think it could change your day. It could change how you look. Like you said,
For sure.
my hair is too short to to do anything like that, but um, no, I do appreciate how much passion you put into this because I think it's refreshing to not get a robotic kind of answer to stuff like that because I've had people in the past when they talk about what they're doing and it's like they're reading from a card what they do. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like why are you doing it though? you know. Um,
Yeah.
so what's one thing you wish more people understood about the emotional side of sustainability?
Uh, I wish people understood that it doesn't have to be motivated by fear.
Mm,
That's a big one because the marketing and sustainability is a very, very fear mongery. And I don't think that motivates people. I think it in fact turns them off. And I also think that people you should know, everyone listening, you can never be sustainable enough to satisfy some people. But that
mm,
doesn't shouldn't start in the first place. Just every little tiny change is really the best move. And a little bit at a time, not all at once.
I love that. So before we close out today's podcast with our daily quote, um, where can our listeners find you?
Okay, so you can find, if you're looking for me, Kate Assaraf, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. I'm a pretty private person on my Instagram, so don't try and find me there. I have two little kids. I keep that part private. But for Dip, you can find our products at dipalready.com, and you can also find us on TikTok and Instagram at Dipalready. And I'm always in the DMs on Instagram if you want to say something there, if you want to reach out there.
Perfect. So before I read my quote of the day, do you have any closing words you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, first I'd like to say thank you for listening all the way to the end. You made it, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking, an hour out of your day, night, morning, whenever you're listening to this to just be part of the conversation. And, it was a little bit more vulnerable than I thought I was going to get into, but I hope that if you're having any kind of those, extreme highs or extreme lows, especially that you can come out of it and it isn't fast and don't put the expectation on yourself to recover quickly because it isn't always that way. And you can live a dual life of repairing and, being happy at the same time, which is where I'm at now.
I love that. And before I read my quote, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing what you shared because like I said before we started recording, I knew you and I would bounce off each other pretty well, and genuinely grateful for how vulnerable you were and sharing what you have shared because I know a lot of that, especially loss, is so hard to talk about. So,
Yeah.
thank you for being willing to be vulnerable with us.
Yeah. Anytime. Well, maybe not anytime. Don't ask me to be vulnerable again.
um, so today's quote comes from Theodore Roosevelt, and it reads: "Courage is not having the strength to go on; it is going on when you don't have the strength."
Yeah, that's a good one.
I saw that quote when I was just browsing, and I'm like, it's so funny when we're at our lowest points, like what you shared earlier, and it motivated you to just push through it and to
Mhm.
grow into what you grew into. And I think it's growth is something so many of us take for granted, and
Yeah.
especially when we're at our lowest points, we see our strongest beings. You know, we become who we're meant to be at our lowest points, right? Um,
Yeah.
but like I said again, Kate, thank you so very much for coming on today's podcast. I think there was a pretty great conversation, and grateful for you telling your story and sharing your brand with us.
Thank you so much for generously sharing your podcast with me. So I appreciate it more than I can really say right now. Thanks.
For all our listeners, thank you guys so much for your support as always. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.